Welcome to I Had No Idea. Safe and healthy use for technology for our kids. There's one kid that benefits from this, if there's one family that benefits from something that we talk about, then the whole thing's worth it. Welcome to I Had No Idea, our podcast for using technology safely. Today we're going to be talking about summer screens, keeping kids safe and balanced when school is out. I love the summer screen idea because you think of sunscreen, and yet we are not always protected when we're thinking about our habits with our devices and our screen time, which we know is going to be increased for a lot of our youth, especially after they've gone through, here in Texas anyway, the very first year of no screens in classes. So it's going to be a behavior adjustment for having access when that wasn't there throughout the school year. I'll start on that by saying that some of our reports right now indicate that it was not a bad thing to have screens put away or have less access. There were youth, we had reports from folks and had a podcast interaction with the school counselor recently who said that they actually saw an increase in students sitting at lunch and talking to each other. They were having conversations. They were engaging in appropriate social behaviors that they may not have done before because the phones were a little bit of a barrier for that person-to-person interaction. So it's a great thing that we are witnessing the students coming around to developing their social skills a little bit better. We also saw and heard that there were times when youth still found ways to connect, sometimes not always in healthy ways. They might use a Google Doc on their school computer to have a little bit of a chat that they normally wouldn't have. But by and large, that strategy for trying to help encourage appropriate social interaction by minimizing some screen time was a success. Half of teens right now in their use of their devices and having access to screen time well exceeds 4 hours. Most reports are that it's around 8 hours a day that youth are on phones or on screens. I'm going to say screens now because that's everything from laptop, your iPad, of course a phone, that's most prevalent. But it has us asking the question, what happens when school is out and there's a whole lot of free time for youth? And depending on the age, because you may have young people who are in daycare situations, so that's going to probably take care of probably the fourth and fifth grade and under, because we know they're going to need more supervision. Well, there's going to be likely more outside time, more play time, more field trips or camps or things to occupy time. And that's very helpful for that youth group age. But you probably got your sixth graders and up who may be older than that, who may not have as much of a structured time. And we have learned that 8.8 million teens during some of the Pew research that has been released report being almost constantly online. That's about 40%. I would venture to say that's a low ball number. In reality, we know that 97% of teens have daily use of their devices on some scale. And I know a lot of parents are trying to institute some type of a rule system or a contract system with their kiddos to make sure that their screen time is balanced with other healthy activities. Use of chatbots and AI for screen time is kind of its whole other category of focus, because the parasocial bond of believing that an online chatbot is an actual friend is a very unsteady and unsure ground for their social development and their emotional development. And one of the things that I say to parents, if they have a kid who's coming home and they're talking about a friend or they're talking about somebody new that they met, they're really seeming enamored with that person, and they say, "This is my friend said this, my friend said that," ask them questions about their friend. If you don't know this friend in real life, then ask where their friend is from. Ask where they met their friend. Ask what school their friend goes to. Some questions like that might help open the conversation. Now, I know your itch is going to immediately be to squash the AI friendship. Go easy on that. Get information first from the youth. Always try to preserve the conversation and think carefully about responses. Here's why. If that child has what they believe to be a real, and I'm putting up my quotey fingers, real relationship, and we go at it from the get-go of automatically trying to cut that, it could backfire. And I'm telling you from a parent and a therapist lens, be careful. Ask about it first. Ask about the ways the child is interacting with the chatbot, what purposes they may have, what it feels like or what it means to them to interact. And then maybe go into the conversation of what is real and what may not be real and what red flags for them to be aware of. What you're doing there is you're giving them the information in a non-threatening way so that if the red flag comes up, they will be able to identify it. They'll be able to say, oh my gosh, in my head, my mom and I, or my dad and I, my grandma and I were talking about this, and she said that if that chatbot starts trying to ask me too many personal questions, or it starts trying to say things about it needing my attention and wanting me to come back to it more than be around my family who I know loves me, then I may need to question that, and I may need to go talk to my trusted human adults. Doing it that way instead of the axe pulling down on the kiddo when they say, I've interacted with the chatbot, doesn't encourage them to try to sneak and get to the chatbot anyway, because that behavior may happen. It doesn't mean they're bad kids. It just means that it's going to be hard for them to pull away. And if they sense that threat or danger, they may be prone to trying to engage with a chatbot in secrecy. So let's traverse that carefully. Let's ask good questions. Let's go back to resources if we get answers that we may be concerned about, and have a good strategy for keeping. And my golden rule as a parent and as a therapist, keep them talking. As long as they're talking, we can make our decisions for how to help or engage with them. So I say that first regarding chatbot behavior, because over 60% of teens right now, I just interacted with a group of teens just yesterday, all raised their hand about use of chatbots in different ways. Several of them said that they use chatbots when there was a concept that was either taught in a class or someone introduced some verbiage they didn't understand, so they used it kind of as a dictionary. They were kind of trusting, hey, I'm just going to go to Claude and I'm going to look this up and see if it's right, or I didn't understand that trigonometry lesson, I'm going to go look for more help. So it's not always bad. I want to be sure we talk about balanced things. I know sometimes you hear from me because I'm a mom, I'm a grandma now, and the stuff that scares you scares me, and we do need to talk about it. But that's why the questions are important. Find out what their use is, why, that it's what their go-to, and then keep the conversation going. So the next thing about our summertime and the fact that we get away from that 6:30 or 7 a.m. alarm clock that goes off to get up and get ready and get dressed for school. And I get the downtime that's needed. Young bodies do need a lot of sleep. But sometimes we see the total flipped opposite, where your kiddo is sleeping all day long and they're up all night, they're either gaming or they're on their screens all night, and their circadian rhythms are so thrown off that it may not be healthy for them. And you know that whenever we start trying to get that rhythm broken, when school starts back, and it's going to be before you know it, that can be a big fight. So let's talk to our kids. One thing I'm learning with students when I'm interacting with them in 2026, as opposed to when I did when I was in the school system prior to 2012, I need to do a better job of explaining. I use 2 words constantly when I'm interacting with youth and asking them to consider healthy habits for being online. And those 2 words are because and why. All right? I got to say, the reason I'm asking you to do this is because, and then give them factual information. Give them some stuff they can go look up and they can find on their own for why I'm telling them this is a better strategy. And the why part of it alone is just being able to answer why. Back when I was growing up, if someone told you no and stop that, and you asked why, they said, because I said so. and as a Gen Xer, that's just what you had to do. You had to just stop it because they said so. Our generation of kids are not that easily satiated with that response, okay? And it doesn't mean they're questioning our authority. It's that they are fed data and information so regularly that the answer to because and why are out there. I would rather provide why I'm telling them or asking them this than just say, hey, no, and stop that and leave it there. So the melatonin suppressing and twice as much, exposure to screens has a physiological response for when kids are on their phones too much. There is a specific wavelength, it's like between 400 and 500, nanometers within the exposure to the screen that can have effects on all of us. Maybe you've heard of the blue light, okay? The blue light concept. You can do more research on that if you want. Go down that rabbit hole. And used to, we'd say just turn the brightness on your phone down and that's better for your eyes. And while it helps, it still does not take away exposure to blue light. Reducing that helps us have healthier sight and other things. I was sharing with a friend just a moment ago, sometimes if my phone is bright, and it usually is because as a crisis responder and a mom, I'm not going to, make excuses, but my phone's not far from me when I'm asleep. But if I'm tempted to pick it up and look at it overnight, I have literally found that I will start having a little bit of nausea. If I'm laying down and I'm looking at it and exposed and that phone is too close to my face, that's not good for me. So I have to stop and put it down and go, I don't want to feel nauseous, or I don't want my eyes to hurt. I don't want headaches. How many of us have suffered from headaches to our laptop? We're on our laptop all day. We go home, we're watching our TV screen. In between, we're scrolling on the phone. Screen, 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 screen. It's everywhere. So the melatonin can be interrupted. The blue light exposure is very real. So there can be loss of the sleep we need to keep our bodies going because we're letting the screens dominate our time and having that impact. Summer compounds that because bedtimes do drift later, and we're doing what we have to do to survive. Y'all, it doesn't make you a bad parent if you go, hey, you know what? I know you want a game. I know you want to be on the screen. But interject the conversation about, all right, here's how much time you have, or it's a good idea to work within the parameters of this exposure. Now tell me what else you plan to do. What else are you working on? If you want to learn about making sourdough or growing potatoes or playing a guitar or doing anything else, let's get those habits and hobbies going so you can step away for a little bit. Depression and anxiety still have very high statistics that are tied to screen exposure. Roughly 1 in 4 high screen use for teens shows that it has an impact on their mental health. So you want to be watching your teen. And I'm talking, like I said, non-daycare, non-camp ages. And a lot of camps are non-screen because you've got horseback riding and you've got swimming and you've got basketball and you've got, campfires and all of the great experiences we want kids to have to try to help them. So that if you notice that your teen is exhibiting loss of sleep, maybe their language about body image or how they feel about themselves. And here's the other thing. When I talked to the kids the other day, and I talked to educators just the day before that, and even in the summer, I'm asking about what teens are dominated with for their future goals. And everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody wants to be, they want the viral video. They want the viral highest number of likes and the millions and all that. And if that is a goal of theirs and they are constantly trying to put out content thinking this will grab, this will be the one thing everybody goes after, they're in a constant mental health spiral of self-validation. Because if they don't get to that place, and it's like getting a lottery ticket. I tell the teens quite honestly, you want to be an influencer, honey? That's fine. But you know how much you can make as being an electrician, and that's a sure bet. You know how much you can make if your grow-up goal is to actually have a career, and then try for the influencer on the side. That way, if it doesn't happen, you have not put all your eggs in one basket and you have some steady income stream. Being an influencer for a lot of people is a matter of happenstance. And a lot of them are flash in the pan. It's 15 minutes of fame and then it goes away. It's not like you get big sponsor deals for every single video you put out there. And that's a harsh but real conversation. And it's not to dissuade them from getting online. It's not to dissuade them from having some fun content. I've seen some amazing things that kids do, and I stand by that. Some of them are just fun. They're just silly. But to say you're going to be the next Mr. Beast, or you're going to be the next, influencer with 80 million followers, it's a lot harder than young people think. So have a conversation with them about the reality of that. Gamers. You've got kiddos, and we know there's a higher prevalence of young males who are gaming as opposed to females who may be on social media. The constant exposure to the gaming is no less a concern, still on screens, still on. Do you know, I actually watched this, and I don't know if this is real or not, so I'm going to give the disclaimer that there's like a headset indention that can happen to your skull if you have the headset on for hours and hours of a day. Think about babies. Whenever our heads are forming and their skulls are somewhat still malleable and they have a little soft spot, y'all, that scared me to death. Could you really have a skull indention in your skull adhere as you grow around wearing heads? I know that's scaring a lot of mamas to death. You're going to go in there in that room, you're going to jerk that headset off that baby right now. But think about how much our bodies are exposed to anything that's constricting. Over time, our bodies are going to respond to it. So how often are we wearing the headset? Do we take a break? Do we watch how we're physically interacting with the not physically interacting with that much exposure to technology? Discord, adjacent potentials, and we're going to talk about this much more in our Predator interview with law enforcement that will be coming later on. But exposure to negative opportunities can still be there, and exposure to cyberbullying, because we know sometimes folks get really into a game. They may get into some negative behaviors for how they treat one another. And we also see with gaming, and I touched on this earlier, and I'm going to have a gaming person come on to give me more actual info on that. But the rage, the gaming rage that sometimes our youth experience spills over into their relationships, their social interactions with others. They have really, really short tempers. You know what it's like if you are a gamer mom or dad or family member. You're sitting downstairs and all of a sudden you hear a slew of really angry words yelled at the top of someone's lungs. I think it's time we step away from what that does, because it is making that kid get a rush of the stress hormone cortisol or their adrenaline's up high. You want to make sure that the gamers have strategies if they're spending a lot of time online, that they can step away and be healthy. So as we talk about some strategies, I'm not just going to sit here and talk about all of these things that are red flags or worries, but let's talk about some strategies. One of the things is that you can create, and I would use the word co-create, summer tech agreements with your kids. And here's a pro tip from psychology. Create a framework, pull up some kind of a blank document, ask them to help come up with the rules for their own health. Now, some kiddos are going to go, yeah, I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to do all that at all. Then say we're going to come up with a number, 5 rules. Of the 5 rules, not 57, 5 rules, which 2 or 3 would you like to state that you feel like would be a fair amount on your screen time exposure, or how many other activities I'm going to do that are not screen related, or a project I need or want to start and probably have done by the end of the summer that's good for me, not necessarily school related, but just good for me. Those are some good strategies to rope them in on it, because if you sit down and you throw down 5 or 10 rules, or they're really hard to follow, or they have no measure, or they're this perfection oriented kind of thing, you're going to lose them. They're not going to follow them, and it's going to be a lot harder. Have a blue light specific tip maybe within those rules. One of them can be device cutoff time that's tied to melatonin research, not just no phones after 9. That's answering that because I don't want you using the phone after this time because the melatonin research shows it's not good for you. Here, I'll show you the research. Get in the habit of answering because and why on some of those rules. Check in with rhythms about surveillance, competing activities, trying to fill hours, having some healthy scheduling there. And it's also a good time to bond with your kiddo. Kids, I've found by and large, and this is something I appreciate in them, is if we put them in the driver's seat, let them give us their opinions, their insights, what they think about technology, what they think is good or bad about it. Make it a conversation and not just a one way, you can't do this, you have to do that, I won't let you do this. That pulls them in more for being able to listen to what you're trying to do in good faith to protect them and help them be healthy. Red flags for secrecy, be aware. If there's a lot of hiding of screens, or there's a lot of use that's away from you, or the further they get away from being able to talk to you about their technology, that may be a time to go do some diving in on some of the articles that we have on I Had No Idea. Look in some of our tabs and learning technology together, or navigating use of the first phone. You can find a lot of resources that help, because I guarantee you, you're not alone in this, because technology is influencing almost all kids. I would venture to say all kids, but I know there are some who may not. So be aware of the red flags. So as we kind of wrap up, concrete action this week is to consider that summer agreement with your child. Be sure you're reading up on screen time, blue light exposure, the necessity for sleeping habits to be healthy even in the summer, and then balancing out with healthy activities as we use screen times. And you'll probably help get through a more productive and wonderful summer with your kiddo, which is what you all deserve. And we'll just meet you back here next time as we cover more on I Had No Idea.